Let me give you a story here. This is good. God plus science equals the Lone Ranger. Ready? Anybody else love the Lone Ranger? Yo, yeah. I love the Lone Ranger. It was always the same every week. Here comes the Lone Ranger and Tonto. They ride into town. They do something heroic. They ride off. Then the one guy says, somebody in the town says, who was that masked man? Right? And the other guy says, which is frontier gibberish for, I don't know, but he left this silver bullet. Right? Okay. Oh, then it was back to the Lone Ranger, and Lone Ranger, hi-yo, silver, and away, and they would ride off, right? And then they show Tonto, and Tonto's like, why am I even in this show? You know? Okay, Christianity has a Lone Ranger story. The Lone Ranger story, it's actually the Lone Rangerette. Lone Rangerette comes riding into Mexico City in 1531, except she didn't have a horse. Okay, she's about 18 years old, beautiful, meets a guy by the name of Juan Diego, and she identifies herself as Our Lady of Guadalupe. What a Christian story for the silver bullet. So she says, here's what I want a chapel up here. I want a church up here on this hill. And she takes his tilma, his cloak, and puts roses in there. And the cloak it's cactus. It should dissolve in like 20, 30 years. Puts the roses in this cloak, wraps them up and says, okay, take them to the bishop and just show him the roses. Don't let anybody else see them. Okay. So he starts heading out. There goes Our Lady of Guadalupe. She said virtually nothing, but she left a silver bullet. He goes in to see the bishop, unfurls the cloak. There is the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. The bishop drops to his knees. That image, which looks a lot like Our Lady of Revelation, chapter 12 of Revelation, there she is standing in front of the sun on top of the moon. That image converted 9 million Aztec pagans who did wonderful things like sacrifice their children to the gods. In a matter of a few years, total flip, they became Christian because of the imagery on here, that this woman, pregnant with God, a virgin from heaven, all the symbolism that just blew them away. Silver bullet, didn't have to say a thing. Advance 400 years, there's more in there. There's more in that silver bullet. 400 years later, now we've got science to look at this stuff, microscopes and all that kind of stuff. Let's take a look at this. Well, how is that tilma even still surviving? It looks just like it did 400 years ago. It hasn't deteriorated at all. That's miracle number one. Now let's take a look at this image. It feels like silk. Temperature of Our Lady of Guadalupe, 98.6. Interesting. And those stars, well, isn't that interesting? Those stars she's standing in front of in the image, in the exact position where the constellations were located on that day in 1531. And then they look into her eyes. They've written books about the eyes. They shined a light into her eyes, and her eyes constricted. Take the light away, dilate. They look in, just like the human eye, where the images are right side up and upside down. Same in her eyes. They're right side up and upside down. What are the images? You can see them microscopically. They had to wait 400 years to be able to see it. There's Juan Diego, there's the bishop, there's the cloak, there are the roses, and 12 other people in the room at the same time, in both eyes. That's science.